Alrighty. Righty-roo, everybody. Hey. 3, 2, 1. Welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you. Hope everybody's doing fantastic out there. Back from Las Vegas. Was boots on the ground today for the Pat Riley press conference, which was a doozy. It was a doozy today. Big themes from this one. You knew it was going to be... as I told you guys going into it, I was talking about a lot of this with Vegas at the season ending, all the reports that were coming out about Jimmy Butler. The first report that came out from the Herald about him, going to be seeking the extension that he was seeking, and that it was, basically a tacked on $60 million season tacked on, turning his player option into a guarantee year. So basically turning what he has now into a 3-year deal. A bump of like 62-ish million guaranteed, right? And the feelings I had, I was like, I gotta feel like the waffling of like, do you really let Jimmy Butler walk over a year? Do you really like cause harsh feelings about it? How is the Heat going to feel about this, right? And then you had all the national reports that were coming out that the Heat, the relationship, it's getting frosty. It's a little bristly. It's not all roses and sunshine. And I really didn't know what to read into it. And I think I told you in the last video, I'm like, I really want to hear what Pat had to say on Monday. And, well, we got how he feels about it on Monday. And that is, they're not that keen on it right now. The Miami Heat are not in a place where they seem very comfortable giving Jimmy Butler any more guaranteed money. That they are in a spot right now where they don't, Pat Riley immediately went to, hey, we don't have to make that decision right now. And I'll just give you, here was, if you did not see the press conference, here was what Pat had to say on all things regarding Jimmy's contract.
You guys have a few months to discuss this and make a final decision, but as of now, do you feel like you guys will offer Jimmy the max extension he's eligible for, and what are the factors that go into that decision?
Well, we don't have to do that for a year. So we have not discussed that internally right now, but we have to look at that, making that kind of commitment, okay? And when do we do it? I mean, we don't have to do it until 25, actually, but we'll see. We haven't made a decision on it, and we really haven't really in earnest discussed it. So we'll just see what happens, Anthony.
With Jimmy's extension window opening July 7th, though, he can request an extension starting on that date. Typically, in his past, he has done that. Typically, there has been, I don't want to say pressure, but there has been discussion.
Pressure. There's no pressure.
Okay.
The last extension was, we gave it to him.
So when Jimmy approaches July 7th for an extension, what will the Miami Heat's response be at that date that his extension window opens?
Well, I mean, if he requests, we can either accept or we can say we're going to think about it, or we have not made a decision on it. I think you can make too much out of this. He's still got 2 years left on a contract. Theoretically, he's got a player opt. But that's something that we have to give some real thought to based on a lot of factors. I don't want to go through the litany of factors right now because they all blow up into different hypotheticals. But, yeah, that's a big decision on our part to commit, that kind of those kinds of resources unless you have somebody who's really going to be there, available every single night. That's the truth.
As you hear there, we're going to commit those resources. You really want to know that person's going to be there every single night. And now, mind you, the year that he's talking about, Jimmy would be 37. And they're already having issues. The franchise is having issues with Jimmy's availability at 34 years old. Ira, who, and Ira, everybody did a great job today with asking him the questions about all things Jimmy. But Ira then asks him about, this was to me the most interesting part of the press conference, and we actually have a retort to this. But as I was making my way back from the arena, Ira had asked, all right, does there have to be a discussion about availability? As you hear, Pat's like, if you're going to commit that to it, we need to know that you're going to be there. And that was the monster, far and away, biggest theme of the press conference, not just with Jimmy Butler, but with everybody, is that Pat Riley, old school, is tired of nobody playing basketball. He's sick of it. And he looks around, he looks at the young teams all around the league. They're all playing their guys. He's looking around the league and he's saying, well, 6 out of the 8 teams, who are paying the tax right now are home. Most of them have old guys because old guys make a lot of money. Paraphrasing a little bit of what he's saying here. And so he wants everybody to kind of get a grip on, we got people who need to play. The people who really didn't get called out today, because everybody got it. Even Udonis Haslem got called out today. Pat Riley was in a froggy mood, but it's like the guys who didn't get called out were basically Bam and Jaime. That's about it. Everybody else, maybe Nico. Nico got some sweet words. But everybody else basically got some of the business from Pat Riley, who he felt needed to get the business. But this was the interesting part to me because Ira is going to ask Pat Riley about the games played issue with Jimmy. And if they're going to do that, do they have to have a talk with Jimmy and his people? And Pat says, we've already had those talks with Jimmy's people.
And then just to follow up on that, instead of talking in circles, Jimmy has not played more than, I believe, 64 games since he's been here. He offered us comments during the preseason that he expected to miss X amount of games. Is there any pressure the team can put on him to get him play more? Has that been discussed when you met with Jimmy on Friday?
No, I didn't meet with Butler on Friday.
And where? Well, the team did. Where does the team stand?
What team met with Butler on Friday?
I thought Jimmy was in here on Friday.
He wasn't in my office.
Okay.
I didn't meet with Bam or Jimmy.
Okay, I apologize on that. Is there any internal thought of approaching Jimmy with X amount of games in mind? And how did you feel this season? Just when I believe the third game of the season was missed for rest. There were illness times when he missed games. Can you just let us know how you feel about those moments? I know in the moment you stay, out of the picture because Spo is coaching, but now after the fact, how did you feel at those moments to see the missed time, sometimes in crucial games?
That was discussed prior to last year. We had a discussion with his agent about that. That was discussed thoroughly. And so there's a gray area during the regular season. And as I mentioned, as far as, what changes is that, when it comes to player availability, I'm just going to, go on a little bit out of the box here. This whole injury reporting stuff that we have to do night in and night out, day in and day out, Tim, and, getting the accurate things. I can remember there was a time when we never reported any injuries because you then became a target. If I was coaching against somebody who had a bad shoulder, I'm going to run them off picks all the time. If I'm somebody that's coaching against somebody who's got a sprained wrist, hard fouls on that wrist. I mean, it's just so we never like to talk about injuries because we felt, one, it's an excuse, and two, that why give the opposition the ability to possibly re-injure a guy who's playing hurt, So, from that standpoint, I don't understand the 65-game rule. I really don't. I know it. I know why they did it, but I don't understand why they said it's okay to miss, at least they're auto-suggesting to the players and agent, it's okay to miss 17 games. And to me, that sends a message that it's okay to take a little more time, maybe to get to be 100%. When nobody in this league is 100%, nobody is. And then there's the injured players, the guys who really are hurt and debilitated, and they take a long time to recover. So that was discussed, Ira, but I won't tell you what came out of the meeting. That was a year ago, yeah.
So there you go. The fact that Pat Riley has said, we've already discussed this with Jimmy Butler's people, his agent, Bernie Lee, is, it bucks at the idea of, hey, this isn't like an issue just because we got bounced early. Jimmy Butler and his games played with Miami have, he's not played. I think the year before that, it was the most that he's played in a Heat jersey, which was 64. Less than 60 in all those. Now, there were a couple of those years were shortened seasons, to be fair to Jimmy. Interestingly enough, Jimmy Butler's agent had some pretty pointed comments to say to Ira Winderman. Ira did an interview with Bernie Lee after this press conference had went down and had said, quote, taking issue in the games in which he played is just not reality, Lee said to the South Florida Sun Sentinel when contacted by phone shortly after Riley concluded his media session. This past season, we had a conversation at the start of the year that there were some rule changes in the NBA. The priority was in place to be able to participate in every game that he was physically able to participate in, and I can tell you that he lived up to that commitment. Jimmy missed 22 games this past year for a mix of personal reasons and injury. If there was a game on the schedule that Jimmy was healthy enough to participate in, he did that. And he played a number of back-to-backs with the utmost priority to him, to everything, for him to do everything that he can to be available. He then gives some stats on Jimmy's go through. He says, if you look at Jimmy's entire career, I'm not really sure where this narrative is coming from in terms of consistently dissecting his availability. But if you look at his 5 years in Miami, Miami has participated in 61 playoff games, not including these past playoffs where he was injured. Of those 61, Jimmy has only missed 3 because of injury. In every single playoff series since he's been in Miami, he's led the team in both minutes per game and total minutes. He's done that for 5 straight years. Last year alone, in the run of the finals, he played more than 900 minutes. Bernie came with the facts. Bernie came with the numbers. But, Pat made this point that Jimmy is a needle mover, and I do think that there was also maybe a thought on some of the ways that Jimmy was playing the games that he was even available for. We give you some of the numbers that Jimmy was not as good going at the rim. But this is definitely noticeable that, look, you have already a very public dispute between Jimmy Butler's agent and Pat Riley on the way that they both thought that this was something that was handled and that Jimmy Butler was going to be more available. And in Pat Riley's eyes, it wasn't good enough. Look, Jimmy Butler, first of all, played that play-in game on a busted MCL. The dude has been an absolute warrior for the Heat at times. You look back to the finals that he played with no Bam Adebayo, no Goran Dragic, the meme of him hunched over. That was 4 years ago. He was not all the way physically right. The Eastern Conference Finals where he won Game 6 and scored 47. Jimmy Butler has put his body through a lot for the Miami Heat and has played the rigors. I think what Pat Riley is saying, though, is there's got to be some talks about why does this always happen? Why are there the banged up issues with Jimmy Butler where the body just doesn't seem like it is holding up? That there's always this situation where Jimmy Butler is going to be in a spot where the tax of an NBA season is not there. And if it's not there, how can they rely on giving him more years as he's older at the price tag that he's asking about? But it definitely annoyed him. And I got to tell you, then there were these comments that came from Pat Riley, which, please don't be mad at me, okay? I just asked a question. He took it in a direction somebody even asked, all right? I was just asked, because Jimmy Butler had these comments over the weekend where he had said, if I was playing, then Boston would be home, the Knicks would be home. You think he was talking to a Knicks fan because even that guy was like, oh, come on, Jimmy, come with this. And he goes, no, I don't want to be with Tibbs. And Tibbs is joking about it. And they're all having jokey jokes. Even Jimmy's agent was joking about this on Twitter. And guess what? Pat Riley didn't find it funny. Pat Riley did not find it funny. He doesn't think that he didn't think that Jimmy Butler should be talking about what I could have done, what I should have done, playoff. I do think for Jimmy Butler, there has been a little bit of a buy-in to the mythology. And I get it. He's been amazing for his 5 years here. He has been and exceeded everything the Miami Heat fan could hope for. And I got to be honest with you, push comes to shove, I probably would give him the extension. I don't necessarily agree that the Heat shouldn't just pay him the extra year and let him ride off into the sunset for everything that he's meant to the Heat. But I do think the Miami Heat are trying to say, in a way, hey, dude, you're not a superhero. You can't click and flip it like this. This regular season stuff does matter. Look around the league. Look how everybody's playing. Continuity matters. Everybody in the exit meetings, he made a point to say, was making the point that, we need to all play together. And there was a record amount of starting lineups. Not the time to say what could have been, what could have, should have been, because you weren't there. And so Pat Riley, in a very biting way, told Jimmy Butler, shut your mouth.
Pat, this weekend, Jimmy Butler had said, if he was healthy, that Boston would have gone home. I know it's tough to live in hypotheticals, but if he was able to play and Terry was able to play, did you feel like the gulf has gotten way too big with you in Boston, or if you had your guys, that it might have been more competitive?
We played, I've been involved in competition and playoffs against certain opponents that turned into hate, even since we've been here, I hate to use that word, but the competition gets so tough that you don't like one another. And so we played Boston 4 times, I think, in the playoffs since Jimmy's been here. So, you do develop some dislike for the other team, but they are, this year, I think, the best team in the league, with the best roster in the league. They made some great moves. Brad Stevens did a great job in getting Holiday and Porzingis. They built their bench a little bit differently. And, for him to say that, I thought, is that Jimmy trolling or is that Jimmy serious? If you're not on the court playing against Boston or on the court playing against the New York Knicks, you should keep your mouth shut. And your criticism of those teams.
And I saw how this blew up on Instagram, saw how it blew up on Twitter. Can't imagine it went over fantastic. But this is Pat Riley. Like, he's 80. He has told every basically one of his stars to go to hell at some point, and that he is not here to hear your mythology, your BS. Dude, he got Udonis Haslem today. He goes, hey. Who does he love more than Udonis Haslem? Last year in his press conference, he left us all in tears with the story about Udonis Haslem. And this year, he's telling Udonis Haslem, hey, a little bit colder on the hot takey-takeys when you go on SportsCenter. You work for the Heat, not ESPN. So he was not in a mood today to hear from anybody. You want to know why? Because as he said, he's a competitive maniac, and even at 79 years old, is sitting there telling you, what did I do after we lost to Boston? I went home, I poured a glass of tequila, I sat there with the volume down, and I watched us get blown out by Boston again until my sleeping medication kicked in. He's like, he's this man, he lives, he dies with it. And I think that there's probably been part of Pat that has looked at Jimmy Butler, who rightfully so after all his success has blown up in TV commercials and opportunities and celebrity status and all of this stuff. That's been great for Jimmy. Good for him. But I think Pat Riley's looked at it and said, hey, man, but what it comes down to and what his big theme of everything was to today was the games. And he also said some stuff about Tyler Hero. Feel like I should do that in another video we could talk about another time. But is this going to bother Jimmy Butler, what he said, where he tells Jimmy Butler, not sure if we're going to pay you. And also, you should keep your mouth shut. If I had to guess, the thing that bothers Jimmy Butler more is the money, not the be quiet part of it. I mean, it was a pretty biting way that Pat Riley said. I'm not going to lie. Listen, I asked the question. I was like, oh. I remember thinking, I was like, oh, okay. That was I didn't say that like verbally because that would have been weird. But in my mind, it was just like, oh. And I just want to say to all the Heat fans, stop yelling at me, okay? It's not my fault, all right? I already have people blasting me on the comments and the tweets and the text I'm getting. My whole point was, does Pat Riley, the point of my question, I don't know if it was well asked or not, was, hey, did you watch that and think, hey, if we had Jimmy and Terry, can we still beat Boston? Or did you feel like, oh, there's a gulf here? And he gave a lot of praise to Boston and talked about the tweaks that they made. And I actually thought that was an interesting thing because I hope Pat Riley will take a note from Brad Stevens and tweak around his two superstars in Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo and figure this thing out the right way. So anyway, there's some more quotes from Bernie Lee. This is what he told to Ira. He said, once he got to the Heat and he got to an organization that he wholeheartedly embraced in every single way, look, they're both cut from the same cloth. They're going to be honest conversations that have to be had this summer about how to move forward. But those conversations aren't going to be driven by anything other than how do we move this forward and take the next step to win a championship. And as for the negotiation, he told Ira, he says, I have too much respect for both what Jimmy has accomplished in his career and what he has built to negotiate publicly. I have way too much respect for the franchise that currently employs him to do that. So we're going away. We're going to go away. We're going to go do our business, and that's whatever it's going to be. I think, honestly, for the people who say, are these comments going to bother Jimmy Butler? I don't think he'll like him. I don't think Jimmy Butler minds confrontation. Pat Riley has said at press conferences before, and he said, who does Jimmy Butler remind him of? He reminds him of me. Like, that's who he, not me, but Pat Riley's saying of me. Pat Riley says Jimmy Butler reminds him of himself, the competitor that he is, the maniac that he is. And I don't think that's going to be an issue. Do I think if Jimmy does not get the extension and Bam Adebayo, who came out today, roses, does? Yeah, I do think that can lead to some hardship. And I don't necessarily know if that's going to make anything kumbaya by the time the season rolls around. But Pat Riley was bringing the heat today. No pun intended. I mean, Pat Riley was not afraid of calling people out in this one. That's for sure.